So let's do an automotive industry update because there's loads going on. And if you thought the car industry was already a little bit unpredictable, you've got to buckle up because it's getting crazier. All thanks to, of course, President Donald Trump and his latest wave of tariffs, economic shakeups, and trade war moves. All of these things are turning the car industry on its head. So in February, Trump signed executive orders imposing 25% tariffs on all steel and aluminium imports, including from key trade partners, Canada, Mexico, and here in the UK as well. There are no tariffs against the UK, but there's global-wide tariffs on the steel. Of course, he didn't stop there. Soon after, he followed up with immediate tariffs on all car and component imports from those countries, i.e. Canada and Mexico, citing a need to protect American industry and jobs. Now, to be fair, these tariffs didn't come out of nowhere. Trump has already been vocal about the fact that he's been wanting to bring car manufacturing back into the US and reducing the reliance on foreign-built components. However, the problem with that is that the way the North American car industry is set up is actually deeply interconnected with both Canada and Mexico, both in terms of assemblies and components, and there's a lot of even sales. There's a lot of back and forth between these countries, a lot of cross-border supply chains. And slapping tariffs on these materials and parts means that building cars in America is suddenly going to get a lot more expensive. What else is happening? Let me get into all of that right after this. A brown car guy. Brown car guy. Right, so as you can imagine, the world has been quick to react to everything that's going on, all the edicts being issued from the Oval Office. Of course, Canada is getting quite aggressive because they've come back with we're not going to be the 51st state of 51st, 52nd, whatever it is, state of America. And you know what? We're going to boycott you and your football teams and your holidays and your drinks and everything. So a lot of tit for tat going on there. Mexico is set to make an announcement. They haven't yet made an announcement, but they apparently are very likely to make an announcement as well when it comes to reciprocal tariffs. So that is likely to happen. But there are other things that are also going on. So, for example, Honda is one of the first, I should say, that has announced that they're going to shift their production in response to these tariffs. So, for example, the next generation Honda Civic Hybrid was supposed to be built in Mexico, but because of the tariffs, Honda has announced that they're going to be moving that production to Indiana, USA. And production is set to begin in May, even though that's actually May 2028, but as much as over 200,000 cars per year. So the trouble is that, of course, it's easier said than done. I mean, we're talking manufacturers, massive manufacturing plants, factories, and supply chains, components. The car industry operates on a just-in-time basis where certain parts have to be at certain parts of the assembly line at certain times, and there has to be a constant flow of stuff, So it's not easy to just move production like that. And that's why they talk about 2028. We're talking 3 years from now. And who knows what's going to happen in 3 years when, just in a few weeks, there have been so many changes and announcements. But anyway, that's what Honda has announced. Ford CEO Jim Farley warned that these tariffs would blow a hole in the US car industry, saying that higher costs will ultimately be passed on to consumers. Ford is already looking into sourcing more components domestically, but that's, like I said, easier said than done. It's not just about where the car is built, it's about where all the parts come from. General Motors imports many of its components from Mexico and Canada. And again, General Motors is an American homegrown company, but it's reliant on other markets. And not just Mexico and Canada, and it's having to reconsider its production strategies, but also as far away as South Korea, because GM has a massive footprint in South Korea. Ever since they bought Daewoo, and a lot of their production actually happens there. So their South Korean subsidiary exports 90% or nearly 90% of its production back to the US. So all of a sudden, what's going to happen to all of that? Does that mean they're going to shut down operations in South Korea? Shifting that production, as they say, would take years and billions in investments to do that. And then you've got Stellantis. Stellantis owns Dodge, Jeep, Chrysler, which of course was the third of the American big three. now owned by Stellantis, which of course is a European company that owns Fiat, Vauxhall, Opel, Peugeot, Citroën, etc., etc. Now, Stellantis already this year has been hit particularly hard. In 2024, they saw a 15% drop in US sales. And now these tariffs could raise prices even further. Stellantis executives haven't ruled out moving production to the US, but with an already slim profit margin, this could hurt the brand's ability to stay competitive, especially a brand that's overall struggling. I have long predicted that Stellantis is just too big, too unwieldy, too many brands, and they're probably going to have to either start selling off those brands or killing them off fairly soon. I think, unfortunately, that is what's going to happen. Oh, hey, are you liking this video? Then make sure that you hit the like button, make sure that you share, and make sure that you subscribe.
Do you love cars? Want to get paid to talk about them? This amazing new book will show you exactly how. How to be an automotive content creator, journalist, and influencer is the ultimate guide to turning your passion for cars into a career. Whether you want to test the latest supercars, attend exclusive events, or build your own thriving platform, this book is your companion guide. Packed with 35 years of insider experience, this book will show you how to get cars for reviews, how to land a job in motoring media, how to grow your audience and go viral, how to turn your passion into a full-time career. Available now on Amazon. Get your copy today.
What does this all mean for car prices? I think this is, as a consumer, as somebody who's watching this, is probably what your main question is, whether you're here in the UK, in Europe, or in America. That's probably what you want to know. How much more expensive are cars going to get? Well, in America, it's not good news. The Alliance of Automotive Innovation estimates that new vehicle prices could rise by as much as 25%. Depending on how car makers react to these tariffs. Analysts predict that Ford and GM alone could lose up to $6 billion and $14 billion respectively if these tariffs stay in place. And it's not looking good for specific models. For example, the Ford Mustang V8, which this year was, or rather 2024, and so far this year, actually from what I remember, this year, there's been a remarkable change in fortune. Now, the Ford Mustang V8, if you remember, is the last man standing when it comes to, if you like, the pony car wars of America. We had the Chevrolet Camaro, that's gone. Dodge Challenger, that was killed off as well. So the Ford Mustang V8 is the last real, muscle car standing. Ford, Jim Farley has previously said several times, I think, that they are committed to the Mustang, and they said that they're going to keep building a manual V8 Mustang for as long as the law will allow them to do it. So that's good. Big up to them for doing that. But interestingly, in this last month or so, what they have seen is that for the first time ever, not only have Mustang sales gone down, but the Mustang Mach-E, the electric one, the electric SUV that's just got Mustang badge on it and the rear Mustang type lights on it, it's actually overtaken the Mustang V8 sales for the first time that's ever happened. So that's quite extraordinary. Now, the interesting thing with the Mustang V8 further putting its production and its life into jeopardy is the fact that the famous Coyote engine, the 5-liter V8 Coyote engine that goes into that thing, brilliant engine, it's actually made in Canada. That engine is actually made in Canada and then imported in and then obviously put into the cars. So that means you can expect significant price hikes for Mustang GT models. They're talking possibly in the range of $5,000 to $7,000 per car. That's how much the premium will add for importing that engine to the price of your favorite muscle car. Dodge is the world's best-selling sports car, actually, the Mustang. Don't forget, still, so far, anyway. Now, what's happening with Dodge? Obviously, Dodge Charger, they launched an electric car, and then there was going to be a V6 model. The trouble is that nobody was buying the electric Charger Daytona, as they're calling it, despite the fake engine noise and this and that. I mean, I'd like to give it a go, actually. I think it's quite interesting, and it still looks kind of cool. But nobody's buying it. They're not really selling. They're not actually flying out the showrooms. And what's actually happening is people are like, no, we'll just wait until the petrol one comes, even though the petrol one's going to be a V6, I think it's a V6, not a V8. However, so that V8 is also uses parts that come from Canada and Mexico. So that also, not V8, that V6, the petrol engine, the internal combustion engine, that also uses parts that come from Canada and Mexico. So again, there's going to be a premium on that one. Similarly, you've got GM, Chevrolet, and GMC's the Chevrolet Silverado truck and the GMC Sierra truck, along with the Ford F-150, which is the best-selling truck of all. These two are also massive sellers for GM, and a huge chunk of those actually are built in Mexico as well. So again, a big problem, and I haven't seen an official report on the potential price increases, but I've seen some online things where people have said that they're quoting as much as $12,000 a price premium on those because of these tariffs. So ultimately, if you live in America and you were thinking about buying a new car, then you might want to do it now. Because now, whilst they're still at that level, whilst there's stock left, because these tariffs are pretty much kicking in. What's actually happened is that they've given them a month. So they've given them a month's reprieve. So this has just recently had been announced, because every time it's changing constantly. So since all this happened, the manufacturers kicked off, and then Trump said, "Oh, I'll give you a month." So they got a month to get all of these cars made and get everything in and do whatever they can do. So they're probably, I would imagine they're probably going to start to stockpile. It's going to be double shifts at factories and stuff like that. And then they'll probably have to take a break and try and figure out what they're going to do after that. But the point is that if you want to buy one, then probably now is the time to buy it, because inevitably, certainly at least after a month, it's quite probably that these massive price premiums are going to start hitting these products. Let's touch on Trump's buddy Elon and his Tesla car company, because again, it's kind of weird, because now Trump is completely anti-EV. That's very clear. But of course, Tesla is built entirely on EVs, and in many ways is responsible for the popularity of EVs initially. And it produces its cars in California and Texas, so it's somewhat shielded from the tariffs. But because of what's been going on politically, Tesla stock has taken a massive hit. I've covered this in another video, and it's been widely covered everywhere. And their sales have taken a massive decline. Again, I've covered this in a separate video. And this is partly because of, obviously, the competition from Chinese brands, which I'll come to in a minute, the market uncertainty, but I think there's very clearly evidence that it's because of Elon Musk himself and his antics and what he's been doing lately that have also caused this collapse in the market for Teslas. This is despite the fact that the global EV market is shifting rapidly, and Chinese car companies like BYD and others are expanding aggressively, while Tesla is losing market share. Tesla is already cutting prices. Apparently, nobody's buying the Cybertruck, and they're $6,000 or $7,000 off, and they're just being stockpiled at the moment, desperate for buyers. And overall, EVs are looking less attractive in the US. Again, I've covered this previously, but the investment that they were going to put into charging infrastructure, they're getting rid of that. Apparently, they're ripping out chargers in government buildings, which seems to me a tremendous waste of money. It's like they're already there, leave them. No, they're actually going to spend money to rip them out. I mean, that's making a point, isn't it? On the other hand, globally, if you look at the fastest growing car manufacturers right now, BYD, the Chinese car company who focuses on electrified product, grew by 41% in 2024. Geely, another one, by 20%. And Chery, another Chinese company, by 38%. These are the biggest growing companies by far last year. Whereas other companies generally took minus numbers, these companies took positive numbers. They were way up there. So what's going to happen? Where do we all go from here? Trump's trade war is forcing a complete recalibration of the automotive industry. This is what we do. What we think we know. Car prices are likely to rise, even if car companies try to absorb the costs. The tariffs and everything are just too exorbitant, and then they've got to spend a whole lot of investment in creating new infrastructure, new facilities, new supply chains. So yeah, it's going to be impossible. Again, moving their production to the US, this will take years, and again, it will still mean costs going up, even if they're moving their production there. Even without the tariffs, costs will go up because of all the investment that they will have to make in order to do that. EV adoption is slowing down, certainly in America, maybe not in Europe. In fact, EV sales in Europe seem to be up, but certainly in America, because they've taken away the incentives, they're not spending on the infrastructure, and they're hitting, obviously, Chinese companies with heavy tariffs. And China, of course, has recently, just yesterday, I think, issued a statement saying, whatever kind of war you want to have, we're ready for it. God, the world is turning into a very dangerous place right now. But overall, however, Chinese car makers could benefit. I mean, I think that they've grown massively in 2024, and I don't think there's any sign of that slowing down. We're seeing a whole load of new manufacturers coming into UK right now from China. I've covered it. I've covered Xpeng recently, and others are coming as well. And I think that, you know, with the established legacy car manufacturers really struggling with these supply chains, and with America being a huge market for a lot of them, they're really going to struggle, while China is just dominating new markets with EVs and stuff. So I think it's going to be an entirely different situation for them, and I think they're going to benefit, let's be honest. I've said this before. Tariffs, which were originally supposedly designed to hit Chinese companies, are probably going to benefit them more than anybody else. More policy changes could come. So, you know, this, if you know Trump by now, you know that every other week it's going to be different. I mean, as I understood it, these tariffs weren't supposed to happen until April. But now they've happened in March. So it's like, where was that? You know, what happened there? So, and this is where the industry and the economies and businesses, they just can't cope with this uncertainty because they can't plan. And that's an absolute nightmare. So the car industry is really just in a holding situation at the moment. They're just bracing for impact because they're going to have to pass the costs on, and they know that's going to hurt them completely. It's going to hurt their production, their investments, their sales for sure because of the higher car prices. It's not the last of the trade war. We're going to hear more, I'm sure. There's more things going to happen. I will try to keep abreast of it as much as possible. It is quite hard because pretty much it's a moving target right now. But anyway, I want to hear what your thoughts are. I want to hear what you think of what's going on. Do that in the comments below. Meanwhile, make sure that you hit like, share, and subscribe. And I'll catch you all in the next video. And of course, the world might have changed completely by that time again. Hey ho. See you then. Shout out time, guys. Thank you so much. Hey, if you enjoy my content, why not get involved? Buy me a coffee. You can do that at either of these links. Or if you're watching on YouTube, buy me a thanks or take out a membership. It all helps. It really does.